exchange of haptics is absolutely not working, at least for me.
Totally agree.
I would say that some of the people I'm talking to, for example, bigger companies doing online show on their own, for example, or like these house room sessions, they do kind of sugarcoating about the real impact. Maybe it's working now, maybe it's working like for the next few weeks, especially gaining the interest of a larger group. But in fact, I think that it's not working on a long-term basis. What is the future? I say, and Nina already mentioned it, is a hybrid event, to feel or to combine the best of a physical event with additional digital services, for example. So maybe it's not necessary anymore for like from one company 25 people to travel to a trade show, but only 10 people and 15 people can attend by digital services. I think that could be one of the future solutions. Also, when it comes to travel costs, that could lead into a more sustainable business future. But I think this personal exchange is, even after the crisis, more than before, absolutely mandatory. And I really can't wait to be at a trade show again, at a physical event again, at the fairground, to welcome people, no matter if it's by handshaking or by hugging or by only like the elbow smashing, I don't care. But I want to have the physical exchange, because otherwise I really don't think that we will have this future approach of how to create a real business or even more business cases with each other.
Fully agree. Yeah, absolutely. And just by simply having the haptic element, of course, with the fabrics, you can't really replace that, or you can't replace that just yet. You were saying before something about January 2021 when you're planning for your event again. That's what we were doing, and we were pretty strongly thinking that it will happen. But now with the latest sort of news and so on, I'm not quite sure if it can be in January. Actually, if you can plan for January, it seems that everything's being pushed down for spring 2021. What's your view on that?
100%. At the moment, we really plan with we have plan A, B, C, maybe D, because we need to foresee the second or even third wave. Then we need to foresee travel limitations from companies from all over the world. I mean, we have at Neonyt, we have a huge base of international guests. More than 55% are from international destinations. So we need to see, can they come to Germany? Won't they come to Germany? I mean, sometimes I try to switch into like a private perspective. Normally I'm traveling quite a lot. And I must say, if I would need to travel to, let's just name it China, for example, and I would need to think about a possible quarantine in a 25 square meters hotel room, I'm not quite sure if I would be happy about that, for being like locked down for 14 days, not seeing my family and stuff. So it's really difficult to foresee what's going on. On the other hand, what I can face right now from several emails exchange, calls exchange, Zoom exchange with both sides, exhibitors and visitors, trade visitors especially, is that the people need this personal exchange to move forward in their businesses. So, for example, we are planning, of course, Heimtextil at the Frankfurt Fairground right now. It will be the largest show starting in 2021 for us, but also maybe on a worldwide scale. And there is a huge hygienic and security concept behind it. We try to deal with the exhibitors that the visitors will get more easy access. We will check with hotels in terms of contingents to make it a little bit more, let's say, cheaper or more affordable. We talk with the airlines what they are doing to bring the people from A to B. So no matter what we have in mind right now, we try to do our best to manage a possible show in January already. And if we see in November or in December or maybe earlier that it can't happen, we will see for alternatives. But also for the in terms of our very own business case as Messe Frankfurt, as a trade show organizer with our own fairground here in Frankfurt, we haven't organized any show worldwide since end of February, beginning of March. So that means even for us, it's really a tough financial situation. So we have to look forward to something positive. And we all think that 2020 is like, let's cut this year out and let's move forward to 2021 as soon as possible. But of course, we have to see the circumstances and what we really can do.
Yeah, I'm just saw a little sign here that we could go on for a few minutes. I think, yeah, it is obviously very difficult times. We have to be agile, plan A, B, C, D. I mean, that's not what is usually seen. I mean, normally you maybe have an idea for plan B, but you really go for so yeah, very different times. But can you see something positive out of it also? I mean, obviously every crisis always has its opportunities, and I mean, we've learned a lot about, I mean, Thimo was talking about it before, like also a bit of a fatigue around like all these digital events. At the same time, obviously, the opportunities with digital communication have been explored way more than ever before. So we learned a lot. What do you think? Is there kind of innovation and inspiration coming out of this? And where would you put it? What do you think? What is the main triggers?
To me first? Okay. Well, I'd say one of the astonishing things for us was, well, let's start with the positive thing first. It was certainly so that this, I'm sure, like in many other industries, made a lot of the old-fashioned sort of approach just basically a kick in the butt and say, you know, now everyone really has to move to digital. So that was obvious, and that was very helpful, especially for us when a lot of the materials, information that we're receiving from our exhibitors are then assessed and evaluated, and then if we approve of them, they go onto these cards that I mentioned at the beginning, which then is attached to each fabric with all the educational information. So a lot of these things very often were just old-fashioned the way they were delivered to us, and everyone seems to be much more open-minded and having systems in place to really communicate their data much more efficiently digitally. So that's been a huge and just simply also the frame of mind has just really changed. The approach and the attitude towards digitization has really changed. So there's no longer a barrier. It's really seen and perceived as something positive. So that's been hugely helpful in many ways. But I would say in terms of fatigue, definitely what we've noticed is that, especially based in London, there is only a very short time window where people want to have these, whatever, webinars, seminars, whatever you want to call it. And it's very narrow because on one hand, you don't want to do it too early because then you're missing out on the US West Coast. You know, it sort of tends to be between 3 and 4 p.m. Now, you might have 3 or 4 of these all in one go. So actually, this huge digital window that you would have thought is there and all the massive possibilities and freedom that everyone all of a sudden has is actually very reduced in terms of time. And also, I think people realize that because everything has to be so much scheduled on a one-to-one basis, or these Zoom calls that are so rigid when they're established, you actually don't have much time during the day to get things done. So it seems to be actually time is even less disposable than we ever have or had, and that has been an interesting discovery. I'm sure we're not the only ones, but it seems to be a huge limitation and frustration as well. So that's a big limit.
Yeah, I can agree on that. I mean, what I can see is that the actual situation is really a booster for digitization. So it's a kick in the ass for every company, for every actual situation we are facing. So working from home, for example, is way more easy now, and this it will not go away. I think this will happen. The way we can create our working space in a more flexible way is something very positive, I would say. Also by myself, I had to learn the hard way that it's possible to deal with several teams from all over the world, but also based here in Germany, and they're sitting not all together in one room, but in a virtual room, but we can see some progress. So that's very valuable for me. But I can also say and see that it's even more valuable to understand how important it is to have a personal exchange, to see yourself or to see yourself in a room with other people working on something very, very directly, not being distracted too much. That's my personal negative point. I'm so much distracted all the time because if I'm attending a webinar, just as a subscriber, as a listener, I'm really distracted by incoming email, incoming Instagram message, incoming whatsoever. So I don't like it at all. And so this is kind of a mixture. But I would say that the most positive impact we will face is the more hybridization of physical and virtual in a very progressive way, in a very valuable way. And I think we've learned a lot in the last month, in the last weeks. And also, like the old-fashioned industries are very aware of what they should do to step into the future. And I think this is something we really can focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of things learned, but no clarity on how the future is going to look like. We touched on a lot of topics. I would like for the end maybe just touch on something a little bit different. Last 5 minutes of our talk, since at the end of the day we're talking about textiles and fashion here. How do you see like these two parts of the industry interact? Is there change with like growing material innovation? Does it also innovate design? This is something I was asking like all of our panelists today already, like how do you see this exchange? I mean, like Lee Edelkort said that kind of the future of fashion lies within material because there's so much innovation happening. Maybe again, Nina, you can kickstart it and have maybe, what is your experience there? Is the offer you make, is that inspiring designers and kind of also changing the mind on how to design?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons why we started with the Future Fabrics Expo is precisely because of that, but maybe from a different motivation. It was about how can you convince a designer to become a more responsible and sustainable designer overall. And of course, material is the, maybe let's call it intuitive way to get them to engage with this subject. So by a creative professional who, you know, we call it death by PowerPoint. You know, if you want to tell them about, you know, environmental footprint and so on, that's, you know, everyone can understand that, but do you really capture their attention and do you really get them to commit and to open their mind to it? I think it's much easier to show them, or in our experience for sure, it's proven now, is to show the solutions and the tools. And if you show them that, they are completely won over pretty instantly. If you show them anything that is colorful, that is super high quality as before, but has a lower environmental impact, I think that is a great sort of initial starting point. But then of course, that leads on, and at the Sustainable Angle, we've always been super keen to say it doesn't just start and end with materials. It's the whole regenerative design process that really needs to be part of this, I don't want to call it journey, it's been so overused, but of this process, let's say, to become a more sustainable, responsible designer. And so it's a fantastic starting point, but it needs to be looked at in terms of a regenerative design approach. But also, I think it's just the natural starting point from an environmental point of view. If you're looking at the impact, mainly from premium to luxury brands and of the others even more so, it's about 60% of the environmental impact comes on average from materials usage. So it makes complete sense to start there, to have a very significant impact on lowering the impact, or even as we now push forward into the next decade, having a positive impact, being climate positive. So that's very much where we see it. Yeah, if that answered really the question, I hope so.
Yeah, I know, but that's how things are nowadays at the moment. Even though we only have like we've seen Leila already, which means there might be some Q&A. But to pass this question on also to Thimo. I mean, we were planning to first time, kind of since a long time, have like a little sourcing area again at Neonyt. So do you think this will maybe even bring the supply chain a bit more together? And is this going to be even more important for hubs like Neonyt to be closer with the fabric sourcing in future?
Yeah, I think this is one of the possibilities coming up, actually. I mean, what I can really see is that the actual situation is speeding up a lot of processes, but also changing a lot of processes. And I think one of the processes which is changing dramatically is the way of creating designs, and it's the way of how product designer and a creative person, and also like the technical people are working together, are collaborating within a virtual or digital environment. So I think there is a dramatic change we are facing already, and this could also mean, or this could also lead into a new approach of how trade shows, for example, are organized, or how the whole production process will be organized. And that means there will be new dates or new timings or a new way of communication, and we will need to face that. We will need to adapt these needs from the industry to ourselves, and to see how we can still work as a platform to bring together these different angles, these different needs, and to make sure that we build up the best-in-class solutions for the industries, for the trade show visitors, for everyone who is involved in the process. And I think this what we are facing right now, and maybe for the next year, for the next 2 years, 3 years, will have a huge impact on when you compare it with the trade show, with the general process, like 2 years ago, maybe, or 3 years ago. So, but I try to see the positive aspects here. Even it will be a challenge, a huge challenge for everyone involved, for sure.
Cool. So, Leila, is there any questions from the audience?
So we have 2 questions from the audience. Noah is asking, how would attendee experience change in the future of trade shows?
It depends on the attendee, I would say. No, I mean, the thing is, as I mentioned, I believe in a hybrid situation. That means that we will face a physical stand, for example, physical booth with digital add-ons. So what I could see is, or what I have in mind is, for example, that you don't have these huge booths with like 150, 200, 300 square meters anymore, but maybe they're getting smaller. And within this booth, you have digital add-ons, for example, virtual reality glasses, where you can browse through the collection, but not only, but not anymore like the whole collection, which is haptically visible, but only a few pieces or main pieces. So this is one of the main aspects I can see. Then for sure, also, I think we can see a recording phase, that an event or like a web talk or like a physical talk is recorded, and then you can see it even after, more than it happened right now. For example, at Neonyt, we really haven't worked that much with recorded sessions. We put them on YouTube. We maybe made a podcast out of it, but we were not really working with it. So I think that would change. So this could lead into a more inspirational source for more people from all over the world. Here it's a question of access. And also what I can see, or what I want to see actually, is to think into more virtual room situations, chat functions, video functions. Again, I think we will have a travel limitation for the next year, or maybe the next years. So maybe not 10 people need to go to one trade show anymore, but only 5 people, and the rest could stay in a virtual world, and having the chance to exchange information anyway. So I think there will be a lot of adaptations into the new situation from an attendee perspective as well. And we as a trade show organizer try to support it as much as possible in cooperation with the companies exhibiting at our shows.
Yeah, I mean, sorry. Just to say, I pretty much agree with what Thimo says. That's exactly our kind of thinking. And I would maybe add that there will be as we said before, there's going to be probably a discovery phase leading up to the Expo trade show, whatever it will be. And people will come perhaps with already quite a bit of knowledge of exactly what they want to see. And therefore, probably less people at the booth make sense in that way, and you would have already engaged perhaps with some of the mills and suppliers beforehand. But yeah, I mean, pretty much agree with Thimo. This is where it's going. It's going to be parallel universes of physical, digital. Hopefully not too confusing, because it can be confusing if you've got so many things going on at the same time, and you might lose focus. So I think it's going to be a steep learning curve, that's for sure. But yeah, parallel rather than replacing one with the other.
Also for us as an organizer, by the way, I think it could be confusing for us as well. We need to learn how to focus on the best possible solutions for our audiences.
Yeah.
So when you're saying you want to focus on the best solutions for the audience, I think this question might follow up quite well on this. If the customers cannot come to the fairs, who are you going to show the materials to then?
Well, I think this is a geographical thing. I think, for example, the UK, there are, if I'm not mistaken, I think about 50 to 60 fashion universities, just to give you an idea of how many, universities having fashion courses. That just gives you an idea of how widespread actually the interest in fashion and textiles is. So I think we would have a good number of people from generally all the industry that is the design teams present in the UK. So I'm not so worried about the customers or let's say the nearshore and English, of course, coming, but it's more the international ones, how we're going to bridge that, because we have a lot of people coming even from Latin America and the States to the Expo. So it's more how we facilitate it for them to be here. And likewise, a lot of them will probably be, a lot of content will be recorded so that it can be rewatched, just like Thimo says, as a transition in a way.
Awesome.
Yeah, and what I would like to add here is that when it comes to numbers, let's talk about numbers a little bit more generally. It's not so much about quantity anymore; it's more about quality. So, for example, normally we would try to increase the number of visitors every new season. But sometimes it's the question, is the quantity really comparable with the quality? And I think what we can see within the next month, within the next years for the trade shows is that there's a huge increase in quality, because the people who really want and need to attend the show, they will attend. So the people who are there are high quality people. And that means that every meeting, every talking situation you will have normally should be like super high qualitative. And the people just like, running around, getting some inspiration, but maybe not like thinking in business cases, they won't be there. But and maybe the whole the vibes will be gone a little bit because of the quantities. But on the other hand, maybe it will be even more professional than it has been before, because the people who are not really necessarily need to travel to a trade show will be then there online mainly, or maybe not appear at a certain time.
Yeah, agree.
All right, thank you, Thimo. Thank you, Nina. So it seems that there's incredible potential in this new chance for trade shows. Thank you, Max. Thank you to all the participants. Actually, in 20 minutes, we'll have our masterclass with circular fashion. You'll find the Zoom link also on our Instagram at The Sustainable Angle. And if you registered for the program, you'll find it there as well. Circular Fashion is going to give you a masterclass on 5 steps to success with circularity in fashion. So I think it's going to be really exciting in 20 minutes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Leila. Thanks, Nina.
Thank you.
Thimo. It was a pleasure, and very happy that this worked out. And
Fabulous.
More collaboration in the future, even.
Perfect. Thank you.
Best of luck to you, Nina and your team.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.